Um, okay, so I'm Shauna Mackenzie, founder of Best Kept Self, and we do these monthly Blab discussions on the last Wednesday of every month, and we kind of rotate every month between your mind, your look, your body, your health. This month is all about mindset, and I am especially really looking forward to this Blab topic about money, because it's such an engaging topic, and I've done a lot of work with it in the past few years especially, and I just think there's so much to continually be learning about when it comes to that. So we're going to talk some really concrete stuff, even though we're talking mindset tonight. But I hope that everyone that's listening walks away with not only some really concrete resources, but a different mindset and maybe a perspective shift that we hope will happen in the next 60 to 70 minutes here. So I'm going to give just a quick introduction, and I'm going to pass it off each to you one-on-one to just give a quick elevator pitch. And then I want you each to tell me why you, because besides Brad, who I specifically invited to this topic, you kind of self-nominated yourself to be a part of this particular subject matter. So tell us why this subject is so important to you. And I'm going to start with Aleka. Aleka is a life strategy coach who I've personally worked with and done a lot of work with money, specifically with Aleka. So I know she's going to give you so much value tonight. So Aleka, give your elevator pitch, and then why is this topic so exciting to talk about for you?
The elevator pitch for myself?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm a holistic life coach, and I've been working in the field of self-development for probably, 15 plus years. And I have a background in psychology and hypnosis and all kinds of different holistic healing practices and energy work and quantum physics. And I think that the type of coaching that I do is I tend to go deep. I'm one of those people that I coach to cause and not necessarily effect. You know, everyone else is nodding. I see, because I think it's great to be able to take those big concepts, like, you have to love yourself first before you can love anyone else. But how does one do that? Right. So that is something that I try to do, is really go deep and get to cause. And I find this topic so interesting because there's so much juice there. Money is a big thing. It's one of those, probably one of the top 4 that has the ability to really hit our deep vulnerability buttons. It has the ability to bring up our stuff like nothing else can, to really find those limiting beliefs, core beliefs, safety, security, trust, self-worth. It's all in there. So I really appreciate this topic for that. I love that it leads us right to those places we need to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right, I'm going to switch it over to Brad now. So Brad is labeled Chief Experience Officer, I love that, at 9 Labs, based out of Atlanta. And I specifically invited Brad to join after meeting, or we were speaking at a conference, right? It was Revolve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we connected after that, specifically actually about this topic, money and women. So Brad, tell us a little bit more about what you do, and then specifically tell us why I invited you out of all the men we could have chosen. And I love having a guy among us, because we're going to get in deep about the dynamics between men and women, because there's a lot of difference between our mindset there.
Yeah, it's a topic I'm not uncomfortable with either. I'm speaking at like 2 other women's conferences this year, and I welcome it. What I do day to day is I run a design agency called 9 Labs, and we work with clients on mobile apps and websites and all that. But I'm also a writer, and I work in the creative space in general. I've been doing it a long time. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. I couldn't tell that echo. So day to day, I work in the creative space for the most part. And then I also teach students through both universities and General Assembly. And for the most part, the line of work that we're in is, for good reason, female dominated. The design and creative space, in my perception, I don't know that we have census data, but at least in the creative entrepreneur space, it's about 65-35 men and women. I think that as far as people who stick with it, I think there's some factors there, but in general, what I find is that, that tends to be the case. So I wrote a book called Creative Truth that came out this year, and I specifically talk about pricing, but also that attitude around money, what it takes to run a creative business, and I spent about 2 years doing research and everything from how pricing is supposed to work and how to start a business, how to build it, how to be profitable, all these things. But dealing with burnout and all these things, overwhelmingly, there's a divide between how men and women handle it. And it's not a factor that men handle it better than women. That's not what I'm saying at all. In fact, women tend to handle it better. It's the societal mindset that we put on it, how people perceive money, the attitude about, I'll kind of get into that later, I'm sure about, when men negotiate, it's perceived one way. When women negotiate, it's perceived another way. And a lot of that stuff just kept ringing true. And specifically with value-based pricing, which is where I spend a lot of my time and expertise, we have a pay gap, obviously, in corporate world. We have a 30% pay gap. We have probably an equivalent pay gap in value-based pricing in my surveys that I've found is that male-dominated agencies tend to charge anywhere from 30 to 40% more in surveys that I found. I'm not okay with that because honestly, a lot of the best firms out there are run by women. And my entire team is women. Funny enough, my business partner and I are the only guys on our team. That's not intentional per se. That it's just that every time we've gone to hire, the best person, the best talent has been a woman, and they do really great work for us. And so it's great for me, but I'm still the owner.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that more and more women are owning their creative businesses, and it's not like, oh, that's cute, your husband pays the bills and you get to run your little business.
Yeah.
It's this, you're being a boss and being a badass and making all this money. And, so whatever I can do to help fix that without sounding like I'm mansplaining, that's what I want to try to do.
I love it. So much to talk about tonight. We might go a little bit longer, but, well, Brad, I know you had a long day, but so much to talk about. I'm going to take a quick refresh right after I put it on, because I don't know if that echoes on my end, but so Emily, while I refresh, Emily just moved to Charleston, made a huge shift in her life, also a certified life coach and leadership women's coach, and so Charleston. And then Emily, give us kind of your elevator pitch about what you do in your business, and then why this topic, why you self-nominated in this discussion.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm trying to figure out where that echo is coming from. I think it might be a little less. Okay. So I am a feminine leadership coach, which to me means that I help women live, love, and lead by devotion and design instead of by default. So really redefining success on our own terms and what it means to be a powerful woman in the 21st century and changing the conversation around success entirely to be more of sexy and soulful success instead of just, the old definition of what kind of has traditionally been a masculine version of success, because men, the world has kind of in the past been built around men working in the workforce. And so now it's about changing the conversation and creating new models of what success can look like, and specifically what success can look like for women in a way that aligns physiologically, biologically, chemically with our makeup as women specifically, because we are biologically unique from men, which is really fascinating to kind of shift the conversation around, which I'm excited to hear Brad and Aleka's perspectives on money as well tonight, because I know we're all kind of like in the same mindset, which is cool. So I run Freedom is Sexy, which is an 8-week course for women on a mission who are looking to create transformation and transition in their lives to move toward greater freedom, fulfillment, and flow. And so basically I teach a feminine energy perspective and lens in my coaching business, and do private coaching and the embodied goddess sisterhood as well. So that's a bit about me. And money, you can imagine money comes up a lot when women are making transitions out of their full-time jobs into a new career or entrepreneurship specifically. So I love this topic, and I think a lot of the literature out there, a lot of the resources out there are from a masculine lens that's very logical and linear, and it doesn't really resonate with a lot of women. And we tend to shut down when we open the spreadsheet and we're like, oh, what is this? And we feel so unfamiliar with it, and we don't have the perspective yet or the mindset yet for ourselves as individuals that feels really good to us, that resonates deeply with us, that allows us to feel free financially and around the conversation of money and mindset and find the balance there that feels really good and luscious to us. So that's why I'm here tonight. I'm excited to talk with everyone and hear everyone's perspectives.
So I know there's an echo. I don't know. I think it's on someone's end. Alexa, can you refresh? Just hit the refresh and then try calling back in. Yeah. I hate to say it. Yeah, I think it was Alexa's.
We won't point fingers. No, that's not nice.
She's muted. Okay, so we're going to continue. She'll call back in and we'll keep going here. But let's start with, so why do women, I guess, do you think struggle with this more? In my mind, I think obviously there's a lot of factors, but I think women who get into business maybe get into business very differently than men do. I think women get into business passion driven more often than maybe men do, versus men kind of see opportunities for revenue. And so I think that drives it, because when we think of passion and giving back to the world, I think we should make money with that, or, you know, that whole thing. So I'm going to pass this to Brad to start here. What do you think the struggle is with women compared to men? I think they equally struggle, but in very different ways, right?
Yeah. I used to think it was activism focused, like you mentioned. You know, for me, my expertise is in creative entrepreneurship for the most part, but I mean, we mentor a lot of clients that are not creatives and as well that tend to be female business owners. And overwhelmingly, what we found is that, it's when you come from a place of passion, the strategic thinking just kind of gets skipped over really quick. And while the whole left brain, right brain thing there's no gender divide with that. Just as many men are left brain, right brain, women, and so on and so forth. I think that what I've seen in spending a lot of time with a lot of female entrepreneurs is that emotional attachment they have to things not going well early on puts you on the defensive in how you negotiate, and it also puts you on the defensive in how you perceive money a lot quicker. Not necessarily because women are more defensive by nature, much more because they care so much more. And I think it's a blessing in the end, because small businesses especially, thrive when people care. But it makes it really hard to put money into this very pragmatic space early on. I don't know. I mean, Emily, obviously you're more of an expert on, you know, these things as far as like the genetic difference and all that. But to me, I think the outside factors are is that it's just unladylike to be a boss about money, and it's considered attaboy for a guy to be a bull about money, and it's just a societal perception that unfortunately girls get pushed on them from an early time, you know, in their lives, that like you're not supposed to be bossy. You know, when a girl tells people what to do and a girl negotiates, it's like you're being bossy. When a guy does it, he's doing his job. And money is something you have to be bossy about. It's something you have to be very bossy about. So I think that's a few things that I've seen. It's not a great answer, because I don't know that there's anything other than people just really been put in this spot of women are supposed to talk about money from a place of self-deprecation and humility, and men are supposed to talk about it from a place of beating you down. And when women come up to that level, it's perceived differently, and we've got to change that.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down to, I think that the number one factor is not having to scream and yell, because people aren't going to respond to that. So not getting in a position where you have to scream and yell about money, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah.
So getting control, which is why my focus is on getting control of pricing strategies early on rather than being reactionary.
Yeah, and I want to dive more into value-based pricing, because that's important. Okay, really quick note, the next thing to try to solve this echo is when you're not talking, in the bottom left corner of your thing, there's a mic. Go ahead and mute it, and I'll say your name when I'm about to pass it to you, and then I think that'll help us mitigate the issue, and I'll mute when I'm not talking. Yeah, that helps. Thank you. Okay, so I love that. I'm going to pass this off to Aleka now. Actually, I would like to hear your thoughts back to what Brad had to say. And specifically, I want you to answer the question, do you think that men and women equally struggle with money, but in different ways? Or do you think that women do, in fact, struggle more?
I think they struggle equally in different ways, but it's just as powerful. And when you're on one side, it feels like you're the only one. And when you're on the other side, it feels like you're the only one. But from my experience working with clients, men and women, it is equal, but it's different, because if we're looking at the limiting beliefs and beliefs that men have around money, it's very different than the ones that women do. One of the beliefs that I see that many women struggle with is abundance and receiving. Being able to take it in, because as sort of a culture, as a societal meme for many years, women are giving, right? We give it. And I like what Brad was saying there, because he was talking about, sort of having to be assertive. And that assertion is so intrinsic to needing to receive. I mean, you have to say, hey, I want this and I deserve it and I'm ready to take it. And it's not about giving all the time, which is something that women really have been programmed over generations, and historically that's what we do. So I think for women, that's one of the biggest issues that we have, is learning how to receive.
Yeah. And again, self-disclosure, I've worked with, and the receiving part is so incredibly hard. And just when you think you have it mastered, you learn something or something comes your way and you realize, oh my gosh, I am so terrible at receiving. So how in the world? And for me, it was a lot of reception in my personal life. And it was like, if I can't even receive in my personal life, how in the world am I supposed to expect the abundance that I deserve in my business life? It's just that they're so incredibly connected all the way around. So Emily, then we'll pass it to you. Do you believe it is an equal but different struggle, or do you think women are a little bit more up?
I think it's definitely equal but different, right? Like with everything that we go through, I think that oftentimes it's easy to say, oh, well, men have it easier or whatever, but that's not necessarily true. We also see things with men who are struggling in society today too. So it's not just either or. I think it's both equal but different. And I think that a lot of the issues that women face around money is a lot to do with the models they see of how it's done, right? So we oftentimes see men being successful with money, and so we try to emulate the same method or the same process. Or we see someone else, even if it's not a man, maybe it's another woman, but we see someone else's process and method, and then we tend to try to do the same thing, and it doesn't necessarily work for us, because money is just an energy exchange, and money is energy. And so when we try to emulate someone else's process or something, we're missing the core and the why behind it, and we don't get the inspiration and the beautiful energy that's magnetic behind the intention of whatever we're putting out there to receive money. So I think it's definitely equal but different, and I think a lot of it has to do with women looking at people who have traditionally been successful with money and not really having the models or examples for what works for them, and giving themselves permission in a way to invent something new, to be able to do it in a way that feels great to them, that they don't have to kind of subscribe to a different method or a certain linear way or someone else's practice, but they can actually create something that just feels really good to their soul from a place of just, intuition and feeling it out and experience and playing around with money and their own systems and the way that they're handling it and receiving. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I want to push back on this one. This one's really tricky in my mind because you're right. It is so easy to get caught up in emulating what we see and what works. And I think one of the best examples of that is watching Marie Forleo draw in millions of dollars running a 6-week online business school. And now everyone in my news feed is throwing sponsored advertisements at me with their 6-week whatever school, all marketed through a free webinar channel. I mean, it's crazy. And so it's like, okay, we don't want to emulate that, and now it's all saturated, but at the same time, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. And I do think that women have a very unique struggle with feeling like they have to do something so unique when there is actually a very easy solution that's been discovered. And then that actually is a sabotage. Like, they think they have to take this very hard route to figure out something super creative. So Brad, I actually would love to hear from you. Where's the balance between those two things on the points that Emily touched, which are really valid? And then there's this other extreme side that can happen as well, like with value-based pricing as well, and that side of things. Like, where do we sort that out? How do we sort?
Yeah. So, I mean, you made a really good point about the this kind of following the trend. That I think that it's something that I don't know of another phrase other than heartbreaking. That's what comes to mind. Is I've found that because I definitely have an outside perspective when I am at a women's conference, and I tend to get pulled into that world a good bit because of the nature of how I speak about these things, and I love it. I love that I'm able to help. And what I find is that the model is she's doing it this way. That's exactly how you're supposed to do it. And then that model gets applied and copied. And when it doesn't work, it's very frustrating. I don't think it has anything to do with genetics. I think it has everything to do with this Pinterest generation. I think that it's just people see what works, they try to duplicate it, and just like Pinterest fails when it's like nailed it and it's this cake that's just like sunk in. It's the same thing with these businesses. Like what Marie Forleo did is a combination of thousands of factors that made that work, including just lightning in a bottle. Her content's great, but it's not any more valuable than content that a lot of other people have. But it's a combination of personality, timing, reach, audience, trust, all of these different things, in addition to just the mechanisms to distribute it at the speed that it needs to happen. So it's really frustrating for women in business, whether you're a graphic designer and you're trying to get your lettering and you look up to Anna Riflebond, or you're a yoga teacher and you don't understand why you only have 300 followers on Instagram and you can't monetize your market. I think that for men, our value is often so tied to money because traditionally men have been the breadwinners. However, we're in a society now where people aren't getting married at 25 anymore. People aren't getting married at 30. And women don't have to rely on men to provide for themselves. They're not living at home with mom and dad. And that's a tough angle when you're 26, 27, 29, 32. You've got to start making money at a certain speed as a woman. And you're not necessarily partnering with someone, man or woman, two women, same income, doesn't matter how you're partnered up. And I think that the nature of that is that there's this pressure to make the money because you need to survive and you need to thrive, but you've come at this from a place of passion and activism. So you feel like, I love yoga. Yoga is what I do. I should be on Instagram talking about yoga. And if you can't monetize that, you get really frustrated. So the reason that value-based pricing for those services tends to be a struggle is because value-based pricing, the mistake that people make is they tie it to the value of your experience. The perception is, I know a lot, so you should pay me more to do this thing. And that is not value-based pricing. That's your rates being higher because of your experience. Value-based pricing is the intrinsic value for the end receiver. And it's a huge difference, whether you're paying somebody $15,000 for an online course to teach you how to do something or $1,500. Yes, there has to be trust and value based on the person who's teaching it to you for you to give them that much money. Maybe, hopefully, they're putting a guarantee or something on the end that if you're dissatisfied. But I think that more importantly, it's about what it does for that audience. And are they happy with what they paid for the outcome that they got? And that's the crux to value-based approach in anything that you do. And it's just like if you want to monetize followers, for example, that in certain markets, it's $500 per impression if you have over 100,000 followers, and in other markets it's 5,000. And those mechanisms that go into place there, this comparison, people try to make apples to apples. It's like, listen, value changes all the time. So the important thing is you've got to get control of strategies of things that are gonna cover what I call your nut. Like, you've got to cover your base and make sure that you're operating from a posture of being taken care of, so that you're not being reactionary all the time. So any pursuit you make that is tied to your self-worth really doesn't need to be the pursuit that's going to pay your mortgage, is my opinion. And I think for women, especially because women tend to put so much into their businesses when they start out, because it tends to be their identity. When their identity is rejected by people, they feel that their value is being rejected. So when they come down on their price, it therefore feels like they're coming down on their value. And it just gets really ugly really fast. I think that men as a whole have an easier time disconnecting that because men start a lot of businesses from a pragmatic perspective. Are there women starting plumbing businesses? Yes. And maybe she's passionate about plumbing, but I'm not being facetious, but I am, is that a lot of men start a plumbing business or an HVAC business or whatever, and women start yoga studios and jewelry lines and stuff like that. And it's not a feminine masculine thing. It's just that no one's passionate about toilets. People are passionate about jewelry. And when you tie value to that, it makes it really hard, really quick to say, okay, I want you to pay this much for it, and somebody rejects that, and then you feel like all of a sudden you just can't ever charge that again because you're not there yet. There's a really long answer. I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah.
Based off followers, which is such a huge day. Get 30,000 Twitter followers or 300,000 Instagram followers. We could do something potentially, but there's so many things I think in our business mind in terms of I think
I think we lost Shauna for a second. And Emily is calling back in. So I don't know.
being very focused.
Alex, do you have anything? I think you're still on mute.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I like what you were saying there around the vulnerability piece of attaching creativity to your sense of work and how that is different for men and for women. I mean, I think that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. I think somebody's trying to come back in. I don't know.
I know. I think they are too.
This is why this technology is a beta, right? Is that it's got to figure all this stuff out. I mean, this is something I really struggle. Like, how do you advise someone from the get-go that's like, you're really passionate about what you do? And, I have a friend who has like an activism-based clothing brand, and it's doing well, but it's not doing incredibly well.
Right.
And it's been going for a couple of years now, and it's really frustrating that like everybody says they like stuff, but when it comes time to actually engage and buy or like back their Kickstarter or whatever else, and people don't do that, it's really deflating. When people don't call you to come fix their air conditioner, you don't take that as an offense, right?
No, it's true. And I think a lot of men do that too. I mean, for sure. The men that I've definitely talked to, their bank account, they are the breadwinners. They have a lot of pressure on themselves to define themselves through what they do. But I appreciate the creativity aspect. I mean, I think that whenever we sort of marriage our self-worth with anything that fluctuates, we're going to be in trouble. You know what I mean? And I think I see that a lot in working with people, that it's safety, it's security. I mean, I think men have that a lot more, the safety security piece. Women, it's more perhaps the worthiness, although I see that in men as well. I think that one of the things that I noticed too is that so many people want to follow the shoulds. They take the classes, the master classes, the marketing strategies, all this stuff. Yeah. But if we put all those into place and the beliefs aren't in alignment with, our truth, and they're limiting beliefs somewhere in there, and these are unconscious typically, that no matter what, we're still going to feel the block and it's not going to come flowing in, you know? So anytime I'm with anyone that, you know, they're moving forward, but what is the stuck place? We can affirm our you know, our butts off to try to get to a better place. But if we don't truly believe it, then on a deep level, then it's not going to show up.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We can hear you. It's choppy, Shauna, but we can hear you. Yeah.
I know it's so rock solid in the past, so I'm like so frustrated that this conversation specifically is thank you for continuing. I don't know what you just said, but I'm sure it was between the both of you. Alana's the question I wanted to talk to you about, and maybe you just answered this, but it was specifically about when you coach people on money and they're coming to problems, they're feeling like I should be farther along or things aren't working out, and how do you draw a line between kind of going, okay, I think you actually have a business model issue versus, no, you have a mindset issue? Because I would imagine that's a struggle innately for ourselves. Like, how do you kind of coach on that to know which way to push them? Maybe the business is just wrong. Like, maybe it's not a mindset thing at all. Maybe the business is just bad, you know?
Right. I mean, I think that's a really good question. I think the first thing we want to do is figure out intention. You know, like, where are you? Where is this coming from? Because if you're just doing this to make money, you're going to earn every penny and it's probably not going to flow. You know, I mean, what is your intention? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because we sell why. I mean, that's what we do. We do it for a reason. So I think we need to get in touch with that. And from there, we can kind of ascertain, okay, you know, is it sort of, what are you doing? And what's not working? 9 times out of 10, it's not an education problem when people are on that level. It's an implementation problem. And there's a core belief somewhere, there's something deeper that we need to look at that's keeping us from getting where we want to be. You know, so, I mean, I think I start with intention and then we sort of flush it out. And quite quickly, it's really easy to see that it's probably deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. So, without having a coach there to kind of point that out, are there any sort of giveaways that a person could be self-aware of? Any sort of hints to look out for, personal red flags that it's a money mind issue? What signals and symptoms do you see?
Yeah, if it's not working, you should look at the money mind issue. I mean, quite frankly, because there's going to be something there. You know, you're not going to, it's not going to hurt you at all by going to the deeper layers. And one of the things that I often say is if you've already tried to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic, you know, to keep it from sinking, then go find the reason why it's sinking. You know what I mean? So I would encourage everyone to do some work around what were you taught about money? What do you think about money? When you say the word money, what happens with you? What do you believe about lack? You know, what do you believe about abundance? I mean, abundance and creating that experience in our life is one of the easiest ways to create self-sabotage for ourselves. So I think it's really important to really ask some deeper questions and say, what do you believe? What were your parents' beliefs around money? What did you see? If you have any judgments or shame around money. I mean, it's something to do regardless. I think anyone that's going to be an entrepreneur about, or anyone that has any issues at all should go deeper and look.
I think that is so incredibly important. And especially the idea of going back, thinking about your parents or your caregiver's mindset about money. What was that like as a child? What have you anchored in your mind about it that maybe need to be undone or thought about in a different perspective, whatever it may be? Welcome back, Emily. You touched on
Can't hear you, Shauna. Well, we have good signals.
I don't know. It sucks. Emily's like just frozen there.
I know. It's a good look, though.
It is. It's a great photo. She should use that as her
There
shot.
you go.
So something, Shauna can cut me off because it's not a point, but something you said a second ago, Alka, like for me, I think it's so interesting, the emotional aspect of it. So this is not my data. There was a study done or series of studies done about particularly around women talking about money.
Yeah.
And it applies to men as well, but they were saying that, you may have already heard this, but there's 3 levels of conversation that people have. Have you heard this before?
Yes, but say it because it's great.
Yeah, and it's like there's, the first level is the weather and what town are you from and all that kind of stuff, that casual stuff. And that's like just acquaintances. That's people that you meet or people that you casually see. And then the second level is you talk about things like, relationships and sex and past transgressions and all of these things are like kind of deep stuff. And that's the people you call like your friends.
Right.
And then the third level of conversation, that's the kind of conversation you really are only going to have with like either your partner or like somebody you're deeply connected to, is money. So that scientifically they've proven more or less that men and women, but people who have this creative spirit especially, are more comfortable talking about sex with a person than they are money.
Yeah,
and in specific detail. Yeah.
And what's so fascinating is that when you really look at the studies that look at how we see money, food, and sex, and how interrelated those are, because we can equate it, we know what to eat. Well, why aren't we doing it? We know we need to exercise, but why aren't we? Because there's something deeper that's keeping us from doing that. And so those 3 things often go deeply together. And honestly, our sex and money and the way we see ourselves and our body image has the ability to make us feel pretty vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge correlation there. But wouldn't it be interesting if we were all able to kind of, and I've done this work, I pride myself on that. Like what I tell my clients, boy, I've been through it. So I think it's really important to be able to say, what would it look like if those beliefs that you have about money, if they didn't exist? What if you believed, that there was a limitless supply and it didn't define you, and you really experienced or were made aware of your own sabotaging behavior? How would that change what shows up for you money-wise?
Man, I really like that.
Yeah.
One of the things that Shauna had asked me in the past when we had talked was, there she is. So I won't ask a question for her.
I was going to dive into The Secret because that book is a pain point for me. The idea of manifestation is wonderful in a lot of ways if done right, and Aleka can speak to this a lot as well, but all of you I'm sure can give advice. But Brad, I want to start with you in reference to like the ideas of The Secret. Where do people go wrong in thinking that's going to solve their problems with money?
You mean just manifesting like
the whole idea of like manifestation, and a lot of people when they think of that, yes, there's lots of things we want to manifest, but we intrinsically go, okay, money, and I want to solve my money problems by doing manifestation work and like reciting mantras. If we say certain things and intentions over and over, then things will just appear. I don't know if you read The Secret or not, or if you agree with it.
Yeah. I haven't read it, but I know the gist of it. I get it. Yes, for me, money is math. At the end of the day, you've got needs that you have to meet, you've got wants that you should meet, and you've got desires that you need to chase. Mm-hmm. And when you put those 3 things together, that's where an attitude for money is constructed. And you've got to be practical and pragmatic about what your needs are and ensure that you're doing the things you need to do to meet those needs. Now, you can shift your needs. You can choose to have 3 roommates. You can choose to live a simple lifestyle. You can choose to adjust how you spend your money. But needs are needs. You've got to eat. You've got to have a place to live and all that kind of stuff. And I think that at the end of the day, when you ignore knowing where you've got to be and ensure that you're taking steps from a budgeting perspective and from an earning perspective to ensure that those needs are being met, you're leaving it to chaos. The worst place you can be in with money in any situation is to have a complete lack of control. So when you leave it to the gods, so to speak, with something like The Secret, you've relinquished all control. because when you have just with anything out there, whether it's eating or any other this type of stuff you cover in your content, when you cover the baseline, there's so much more freedom. Get that 80-20 rule mindset in place for money as well. Get the baseline stuff covered. And then if you want to visualize things like, hey, if I really have a positive attitude about how I present things, that's great. But I think that you have to have this, you've got to know, I can afford this, I can't afford this, I have to save here, I have to do this stuff. And I know this is basic stuff, but for me, I just can't understand how anyone cannot know what their expenditures and income are and how they line up, and expect to run a business, especially, but have a life either,
But you see that constantly. People are so afraid to look at financials. They keep it in-house because they're not really doing it per se. I think one of the best investments is if you're kind of scared or have no idea, what a P&L is or how to construct that or what you need to be looking for on it. Hire a pro, like get the bookkeeper, the accountant, and get an accountant who won't just do the books. Have someone who meets with you on a monthly basis and goes through all your financials. I think getting excited about seeing spreadsheets is so incredibly important. And I personally feel that's one thing I've seen with women entrepreneurs. They really shy away from looking at those documents, which are so incredibly important. And then another point that you made, which was kind of ringing some bells on my end, is acting out of desperation. I think that's another like self-sabotaging behavior you'll oftentimes see, and it never works when you act out of desperation to like quickly launch something or throw out a webinar with a price tag on it and you need quick cash. Doing anything out of desperation has never served me nor anyone that I know. So that I thought of that when you were talking about when you were commenting there. Emily, how about you with manifestation? Give us some thoughts on where manifestation goes wrong and how people work with the idea of manifestation in the right way, with money specifically, trying to manifest money in abundance in that sense.
Well, I think that manifestation goes wrong in the sense that there's no responsibility or no accountability of yourself, of actually doing something or figuring it out to be able to take action on it, right? So kind of like Brad said, releasing all this control and kind of like leaving it up to fate. And instead of doing it that way, right, I think there's a beautiful marriage of the two where you are in trust and you have the intentions that you're holding for what abundance looks like for you, or what the long-term goals are, the vision for how much money you'd love to have, but also being real with, what are the things, what are the numbers at hand? What am I bringing in? What am I needing to spend? What does it look like in my business or in my life? What are the bases I need to be covering? And I think there is a beautiful, sorry, I got distracted because I saw her pop off again. So I think there's a beautiful way that those two things can come together and that you can manifest. But I think the difference is you have to become the energy you want to attract, right? So when we say like energy is money is energy, it's the law of attraction in that way. That is like the manifesting the secret kind of thing. But I think people misinterpret that piece and they think that if they just say the mantra or whatever, it's not fully integrated in how they're being. And so what helps, I think, when you're actually doing manifestation the right way is to get in the state of your greatest aliveness. So really like raise your energetic vibration so that you can feel more excited, more energized, and you can really be that energy so that you can call that in, so that you create opportunity for that to come in and connect. But I don't think there's anything like supernatural about it, really. I think it's just like basically you need to cover your resources, because if you aren't doing that, or your bases, if you're not doing that, you can't possibly be in that energy, that higher vibrational frequency, because you are in that place of desperation. You're in survival mode. So that automatically takes you out of that state and you're not able to attract what you want to.
Yeah. Can you guys see me and hear me?
Is she back?
Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to spin this off to Aleka too, because I know you have a lot to say on this. But before I do, I'm going to cue Brad up just in case. After this, Brad, I want you to give us one thing that everyone listening can do in their business to generate more revenue in the next week, like one business activity that you think will be helpful in generating more revenue. But before we do that, Aleka, get into manifestation on your end. Where does it go wrong? How can we work with the idea of manifest and intention the right way?
Yeah, that's a big question. I'll tell you, I like The Secret in one aspect, and it taught us that we have more co-creative power than we think we do. I mean, I think it brought up some ideas that we actually do have an effect on what shows up in our life. And that's pretty much where I leave The Secret. I think it's really, I'm not a huge fan of sort of the metaphysical, like, oh, I manifested that, and you should have manifested that. And quite frankly, I mean, I understand, I think that's true, and I not to make light of that, but I also, it's so interesting how we tend to own the awesome things we've manifested and not the other stuff, you know? We don't like to be like, oh, I manifested that, you know? So anyway, but I think what's important about that thought of co-creation and manifestation is that we don't create in our life what we want. We create what we believe. And we create what we believe we deserve and what we believe about the world. And we have to understand that our mind is like an iceberg, right? So we have the top of the iceberg, what we can see, that's what we're conscious of. The rest of that iceberg is our unconscious mind. And that's where we actually create from. We don't create from the top piece. So affirmations don't work because they sort of stay up here. If we really, really want to co-create, and I think we do. I mean, I think there is that. If you study quantum physics, you know that you create what you believe, and there's a way of organizing information in the mind that creates perception, and that creates your reality. I mean, that's another show perhaps. But when it comes to really saying, okay, what am I co-creating? You have to get to the level of belief. And what I find really fascinating, and there has been some really interesting study, that if we can affirm and we can affirm and we can affirm. So think about your mind like a filing cabinet. And at the very top is your conscious stuff. It's kind of what you're aware of. It's more of the positive stuff. The deeper beliefs, like this is shadow stuff, right? This is stuff we're like, I'm just going to put that over there and worry about that later, right? That's the stuff we kind of like, bells and whistles up here. Don't look there. That's the stuff at the bottom of that file. So say we have a money file, and at the very bottom of that file is lack. There's a deep embedded, belief somewhere. We could go figure out where that came from, but it's there. But at the top, we're affirming, right? We have all these great affirmations about abundance and flow and what we deserve. But every time we kind of animate that file, what we actually animate is at the bottom. It's that lack. That's what we're creating from. And what I find so fascinating is, do you know how many people watch that movie, The Secret? And then you look at trends in our economy, it went down, not up. So what I find so fascinating, all these people manifesting cars and, I don't know, vision boards and all kinds of stuff. And we have one of the biggest financial crashes that we've had. And I think that adds some validity to a lot of the cool studies out there that really show we're actually animating a file and we're creating from a deeper sense of belief. So I think manifesting and co-creation is amazing. I think it's great, but I think you really, really need to get to the core of what your beliefs are, not necessarily what you want.
Yeah. And one of the things that, one of my big takeaways from some of the conversations that you and I have had have been about, okay, so we want more money, right? But what do we want more money? Why? Like, what things are we going to do with that money? And when we get to, okay, well, if I had more money, I would employ this person, or I would travel more, I would do this. If you can actually go, okay, well, maybe you don't need money to do those things. Maybe you will get this amazing opportunity to speak at a conference, which is going to fly you for free to this place. And then you're going to start speaking to, so I mean, that was just such a light bulb for me. When I think about, okay, what are the reasons that I want money? What are the things that I think I'm going to buy, or what's going to change? And instead of focusing on, I need money, I focus on, I want to travel, and this is what this looks like. Or I want this employee, and this is what this person looks like. And then those things all of a sudden tend to be a lot more achievable.
and oftentimes don't necessarily come through me creating a different business model that then generates that. And so that I just want to bring up was so incredibly helpful. I don't know if you have anything just real quick to add to that.
What you're talking about there is sort of the vision boarding versus intention board thing. I'm not a huge fan of vision boards because I think that, again, from the top of the pile, so if someone says, I want a Corvette, I want to have $1 million, I'll say, awesome. Why? Because what will that give you? And if it will give you freedom, and it will give you, which it usually would, that's a core, that's what we want. I'll say, all right, so let's create a vision board that is all about freedom, and what in your life right now gives you freedom? What can you create that gives you freedom? And where are you blocking freedom? Just in even the details.
Yeah.
So that's oops.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to pass it to Brad to answer the question I posed before. What's one thing that anyone listening can do in the next week to start generating more revenue now?
Okay. Can I give you two?
Yes.
Because they go together. So if you're not doing this, the most important thing you can do, you need to know who your key relationships are that are going to help you generate revenue. Not your clients, not people that are generating direct revenue to you. The people who are what I call your fire starters, they're the people who will set up a lunch for you, who will set up a coffee. If you don't have a tool in place, you don't need a CRM. This could be a spreadsheet. This could be in a binder. You need to identify who those people are and start keeping up with when they connect you with people. Because again, 80-20 rule is the rule to business development. So if you don't have a system in place right now where Shauna and Jennifer and all these different people over here are the people that consistently refer people to me. Identify who those people are. And then the second part of that is think about what you do, and in the cleanest way and simplest way possible, getting people started rather than trying to sell them the whole package of whatever it is you do. Whether that's a discovery workshop, whether that's consulting sessions, whether it is like, do we need to, focus more on webinars or creating content, have a thing that you can then go to those partners and that are your best amplifiers and go, I have this thing that I want amplified as much as possible. Will you help me amplify it over the next week? And get a clean message out there. It gives you a chance to realign what people understand that you do and what you actually do with the people who are going to do the best job of helping you explain that, because you can't reach everyone at once.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important step in the money conversation, because the sooner that you have a clear identification of who these people are, they're going to be your megaphone and amplify for you, and they have a very clear message to amplify for you. The thing that where we drop off is for them to have an answer to the so what. So they say, Shauna's great, she does this awesome stuff, and they're like, that's great to hear, so what? Giving them that third piece, which is, and you need to hire her for a discovery session, or you need to sign up for this webinar, or you need to do this thing. That's really important because it allows you to start generating leads and building revenue really quickly with something that doesn't require you to make it your next project per se. And even if you don't have a service business, if you have a product business, it may be that, and she's going to have a trunk sale, or she's doing a seminar, or she's going to be, a lot of my friends in the health and wellness space, it's a yoga instructor's and she's doing a getaway weekend, and here's the URL. Be very specific about who can amplify that and what they need to amplify, and then just beat that. Just do that over and over again, and then keep up with the people that come back to you from those people, and start to just really build that net of the people that will amplify. Give them very simple things that they can tell people that you do, and let them tell your audience for you, because social media is only going to get you so far. You only reach people on social media who know who you are. So let those people expand it. Yeah.
Are you going to burn out those people? That would be the question I think would be on a lot of people's mind. You create this hit list, which I love that. I just actually redid that myself in my own business. What is your how would you coach someone on, not burning those people out of constantly asking for these favors of amplification? Yeah,
well, I'm talking about this is a short-term thing with a specific action. Okay. So no, you can't do that over and over again. I absolutely agree. I think that's I think it's one of those things where you can't rely on those people over and over again, because then, so I think the bigger question, what you're asking, this goes back to the issue is that a lot of, I know I don't have to mince words, but I see this more with female business owners here lately, is they have a lot of stuff that they're selling. There's a lot. And it's like, okay, what am I supposed to buy from you? Because I've got 19 options here. And I'm not being facetious. It could be that you're selling Advocare and you're running a jewelry business and you're also teaching yoga at the same time. It could be that problem, or it could be that you're a life coach, but you've got 9 different ways to engage. You got to simplify that. You got to be really clear about, this is the first step to engage with me. You won't wear people out with that, because if you're doing something good, your fire starters, your amplifiers absolutely will let people know on a consistent basis. Shauna's doing a webinar again in 6 weeks. They'll retweet that for you and repost that over and over again, and you're not going to wear that down. And then you just don't let them down by putting out good content. But if you ask them to talk about all 19 things that you've put out, you're going to, but that's the problem. I'm seeing it a lot right now, with men too. I'm not saying, but I am seeing a lot with, I'll stop here, but I'll say this, that's the curse of women versus men, is that men are, it's like the men are dogs and women are cats thing, is that men are like one thing like this, and women just, you guys are so much more creative. You have so many more ideas, and you're like, oh my God, I could do this. Oh my God, I could do this. And when you're in a creative position and you actually can start pursuing those things, you kind of have to have people to tell you, wait, build that one first and then go build that one. But when it's so easy to start a business now, you kind of just keep starting businesses. It's serial business starting is a problem, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, all valid points. Brad, thank you so much for joining us. I know you just said you have to go, right?
I'm okay. I can hang back, but please.
We're only, so Emily, I don't know if you heard that question or not, and you keep cutting in and out, so I'm not sure if you're going to hear this or you can hear me now. But the same question, essentially, what's one concrete business activity, Emily, that people can do in the next week to generate more revenue in their business? What's one takeaway homework task you would give them? I don't think she can hear me.
I don't see her.
Emily can't. Okay, Aleka, you answer that question.
Did you say I should answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, from what I've been saying from the beginning, I think that do a little inventory, do a little self-examination, do a little excavating, and perhaps ask yourself, what were my early messages around money? What do I believe about money? And how does money make me feel? If I had the money that I think I would want, which is funny because when I ask people that, I say, well, how much money would it take? And it's not really ever enough money. It's sort of a game nobody wins. So what, there is some truth to that as far as, the nuts and bolts of like, you gotta pay the bills. So there's that question, but I want to ask it in a different way. I want you to ask yourself, what is worth to me? So to go deeper inward and ask yourself some deeper questions about money, value, worth. A lot of times with money, it's safety, security, worthiness. Mm-hmm. Those are sort of the big three, that it makes us feel. If I had more of that, and freedom, that's another one, that if I had more of that, that's what I would get. But ask yourself what some of the messages you got. And I think you might surprise yourself as far as what you might need to shift. Because, those beliefs, although they're in there, in that mind, they may not be helpful anymore. They may be ones that you can sort of reevaluate, challenge, and perhaps undo. And you'll see a much different experience in your life.
Yeah, I love that. Great tips. And Emily, I don't know if you can hear us yet. I can't see you, but if you can answer that question, I'll give you just a few seconds. I don't think she can hear us. Okay, we're going to wrap it up because everyone's been patient enough for, I think, 1 hour late on a Wednesday night. So as we wrap up here, if you can, off the top of your head, give us a book recommendation. And Brad, you're going to give 2 because you're going to remind people what your book is that you just launched, and then another book recommendation that you really like. And then I want you to tell us where people can find you, what's the best way to connect, and if there's anything exciting currently going on that people need to know about, that we can be those amplifiers for you as we're listening here. So Brad, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm going to recommend.
Yes.
Yeah. So my book is called Creative Truth, and you can get it on Amazon. So it's just Creative Truth. And then there is a website, thecreativetruth.com, but I have been very busy doing things like this. So the website's not really much, but it has the link to Amazon on it. So yeah, and it's start and build a profitable design business. We needed to get a niche for that for design, but we talk about photography, illustration, and I've had, everything from life coaches, yoga teachers, jewelry makers, furniture makers, tons of people buy it and say they've got a ton out of it. I don't make hardly any money off the book, so you're not doing much for me there. I just really wanted it out there. It's the book I wish I'd had 10 years ago on how to have a good mindset about money. One of my favorite books on money, there are a lot out there, but there's another book called The Creative Professional's Guide to Money. And it's by a woman named Elise Bennon, so Benun. So if you just Google Creative Professional's Guide to Money, it's on Amazon. She digs more into the money management side of it for people that have an unstable income. And so you have an irregular income and you need to deal with cash flow and all those kind of things. It's very nuts and bolts, but she has a lot of interviews that have a lot of stuff in there about attitude, and it's fantastic. And she's a wonderful person. Elise is she's a genius. She's brilliant. So both of those, I think that they can do a lot for you. And in my book, I actually recommend about 10 other ones as well. And then, yeah, you can find me at S Brad Weaver. So it's just letter S in front of Brad Weaver on all the social networks. I think I'm Brad Weaver on Instagram. And yeah, I love talking about this stuff. Don't be shy. I try to answer people's questions. I love speaking at conferences and doing webinars like this and talking about it. So if anybody wants me to do that, I love it. It's a passion for me. Yeah, I mean, I'm speaking in a lot of places right now. There's not like a particular thing, but I will tell you that if you want to be around a lot of other women who are struggling with this same stuff that are creative entrepreneurs, I'm speaking at a conference this fall called Yellow. It's in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And it's a lot of my friends and 2 of my employees went last year, and it was life-changing for them. And I have no affiliation to them. That's not a pitch, but the women that put it on work their tails off to make it really easy for people to have these hard conversations over 3 days. So I think it's just yellowconference.com, but it's called
Awesome.
Yellow Conference. And I really, really recommend it. So I'll be doing a workshop there this year on profit, and specifically profit for nonprofits, which is kind of interesting. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, so check that out for sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Tools. Yeah, thank you so much. After your long day, I appreciate it. And then having to deal with tech issues, that's annoying. So, Aleka, what is a book recommendation for everyone listening, and where can people find you? And is there anything exciting right now that you want to tell us that we can help you amplify?
Well, my favorite book on money is Bustin' Loose from the Money Game by Robert Shanfield. Yeah, it's a great book. I mean, it's awesome. So that's my favorite. You can find me I don't have a book. I haven't written one yet. Planning on it, in the process. But on my website, alekasky.com, ALEKASKY. I have a podcast that I do called the Holistic Health Hour. And everything I talked about tonight, there's tons of free content there that you can go to and listen to all kinds of cool stuff. I also welcome feedback and questions, and certainly coaching clients if that's interesting. What do I have going on right now? I have a lot of classes and that kind of thing coming up. Best just to go to my website, take a look, because it's all listed right there.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, she does. I'll vouch for all of the free stuff that's on the site. Especially a lot of the podcasts and the audio. It's great to just download that stuff, listen to it on the go, or when you're working out or whatever. So lots there. And then Emily, hopefully you can hear us and we can hear you. I got your one book recommendation here, but Yeah, so people can find you on Instagram. Tell them, say it out loud for those that might not be seeing the chat here, what your book recommendation is, and then what do you have in the works?
Sure. Right now, I have it with me, actually. It is The Law of Divine Compensation by Marianne Williamson, and it's about work, money, and miracles. So if you resonate with a more spiritual perspective, or if you want to understand the right way to manifest, it's a great book. And then what's exciting for me right now is I'm launching my third round of my signature program, Freedom is Sexy. It's an 8-week deep dive immersion for 10 women. And the way it works is private coaching and sister circles. So we alternate every other week with those 2 different mediums. And it's a really beautiful and super transformational and powerful combination. So if you're interested in sort of redefining what freedom looks like for you, whether that's financially, in your career, in any area of your life at all, it's a great way to like deep dive and laser focus, but also have the group support to change those beliefs and immerse yourself in a new environment with people who get it and who are on the same journey. So you can find that at emilycastle.com/freedomisSexy. And I put that in the chat box as well for you guys who are able to see that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Despite everything and the issues, you all have given so much valuable information, which I knew none of you would let me down on. Brad, Aleka, and Emily, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really, really, really appreciate it. We'll see what the recording does and what sort of video we're going to get out of this. If it's decent, we'll publish it. But regardless, where I will put summaries, show notes, and all of the tips that we've mentioned, including the books, will be actually on the Best Kept Self fan page as a status update, hopefully with the recording video, which is decent to listen to. So we will tag you all so you will know when that goes up live. And then once again, just thank you so much. And to everyone for joining us. We will be back again next month, which is May already, which is crazy. The last Wednesday of the month. And we'll be back to talking about your health on that one. And we have another round of really great contributors and guest speakers. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Aleka's book recommendation was Busting Loose from the Money Game. And I'll hang out here for just a few seconds if anyone else has any questions. But thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
As harsh as